Hi guys, welcome to the first video of my kata series. The idea of this series is to really give a breakdown of each move in the Heian katas and any common mistakes that people make when they're performing the kata. There are 5 Heian katas, the first being Heian Shodan, which you learn at orange belt level. It has 21 moves with kiais at moves 9 and 17. Throughout the video, I'll have the move number we're on and the name of the technique and stance you're in written on the screen. I'll be taking it fairly slowly as the main thing we're focusing on here is the technique of the moves. Alright then, I guess we'll just jump into it. So for the first few moves, you need to really focus on staying low and not falling into the moves. We also don't want to be folding our arms as we're doing our gadambarai and making sure our hips are at 45 degrees for the gadambarai and square for the punch. What can sometimes really help is imagining you're pointing with your preparation hand in the direction that you're going. And as with all blocks in the Heian katas, make sure that as you prepare, your hips are square, and as you block, your hips move to 45 degrees to get that hip action working. Moving into the third move, you really want to make sure that your feet don't end up in line as you turn. You really want to maintain that hip width between your feet. Also, the same thing here of trying to get your hips to be square on to where you're going before you block, so when you move into the block, you maintain that 45 degrees. Once again, pointing in the direction that you're going with your preparation hand can really help with this to pull your hip all the way around. So the next move is age-zuki, which you don't often see in your line work, so it can be quite a difficult move to execute, especially at orange belt level. So as you bring your foot back, make sure you're not bringing it back too far or standing up too high, which is quite common to do. You need to make sure that your fist is coming over to the top of your head and straight down. When your fist reaches your head, your hips should be square, and then as you finish the technique, it should be 45 degrees. Then we do a straightforward punch, and as we turn into gadambarai facing forwards, we need to make sure that we're looking first before we turn, because you're meant to be looking for an opponent that you're blocking. There's no point in wildly blocking when you don't know what's coming. Up next is 3 age-zukis leading up to the kiai. There are some common mistakes made with these age-zukis. People tend to put their fist behind their elbow. This actually makes the technique quite weak because that's only relying on your arm power, whereas if your fist is in front of your elbow, it allows you to use your whole shoulder and back to defend against whatever technique's being flung at you. So really make sure that your fist is in front of your elbow here. So after the kiai, you turn into gadambarai. This spin's quite hard to do, especially on grass in trainers. But the main issues people have here are bending over too far, and therefore that makes it very easy to fall over. Other issues include not turning far enough, so your stance is very narrow, or when you're turning, you're not preparing properly or not pointing with your preparation hand, and so your hip doesn't come round enough. So make sure you're really focusing on those hips. For the next 3 moves, the punch, then gadambarai, then punch, make sure you're really keeping low and looking before you turn and making sure those gadambarais have 45 degree hips and your punches have square hips. Coming down for the second kiai, it's just like Heian with gadambarai followed by 3 punches. The 4 shuto-ukes happening here are actually quite hard to maintain your balance, so really focus on pointing with your preparation hand, as always, to get those hips round and then pushing out your hips to land. As you turn, try and keep your weight on your back leg, as unlike with front stance, you're actually keeping a lot more weight on your back leg. Also make sure that the second and fourth shuto-uke are facing 45 degrees towards the corners of the room if you're inside. Really make sure this angle is 45 degrees because you don't want the angle to be too shallow or too straight towards the front. Okay, so that's the end of the kata. I'm just going to go over a few important things that you can pick up on from watching this video. So as you can see, my backhand, so the one that's in the hikate position, is really tucked in and my elbow is really tucked in for the entire kata. If you don't do this, your moves can start to look a bit chicken wingy, which is never a good description of kata. Also, especially on the 3 moves before each kiai, make sure you're not twisting your front foot before you step, because that actually shifts your weight back, and therefore making your technique slower. and means your weight isn't travelling forwards the whole time, which it should be. So that brings us to the end of the video. So if you've got any questions, please contact me in message or video form. I'm ready to critique anything you send me. This was the simplest kata in the series, so the next few videos will be longer and in greater depth. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Please keep practicing.